Well, all right. Let's get this started. You'll notice got this ukulele out here. And I just I've got a confession to make. It's been forever, and I only just now got around to seeing Spider-Verse. So, yeah, I feel like I owe you all an explanation, an apology, but also, most importantly, a song about how it's not really my fault at all. You know? I don't know, it just feels like everybody was talking about Spider-Verse, and I was just being left out of it, and nobody was being considerate of my feelings, you know? Nobody was like, hey, Gayfesh, why haven't you seen Spider-Verse? Well, I'll tell you why. I didn't get around to it. Did you even think about that? Or were you too busy talking about Spider-Verse? Yeah. Yeah, it's typical. That makes a lot of sense. But as long as you're entertained, you know? Yeah, I know you hadn't considered that, Paco. Come on, man. Well, I think that's probably about enough of that. Let me put this away. Let's get some regular music going here. Okay. So, we've only got a couple viewers here, but that's okay. Things will trickle in. For my two viewers, how are you doing? I see Paco's there. And the other viewer, I don't know, might be somebody who's just playing it on silent. Give me, oh, we got a third viewer. Hello, hello, hello. Well, for the new viewer coming in, you just missed the ukulele bit. But, yeah. Today we're going to be covering a couple topics. I've got my Secret Invasion and my Strange New Worlds coming out here, but, obviously, I saw Spider-Verse this week. And so, we're going to lead with that one. So let me get that text up there. And then, let me move over here. Okay. So, and then the notes. Okay. Hey, J-Fran. So, I saw Spider-Verse this week. Everyone's been talking about it pretty much nonstop. And I've actually managed to avoid most spoilers for it. And I want to keep this one kind of in the same vein. I mean, I'm going to talk about some character moments, and I'm going to, you know, bring up some characters. Obviously, like, this guy, the Spot, he wasn't really in a lot of the promotional materials or the trailers or anything like that, but he is the villain of the movie. Sort of. We can get into that. But I feel like one thing I really want to talk about in this movie is just more of the art direction. And in particular, this movie uses live action in some bits. And I really like the way that they do it. Because it's never really treated as like a break, so to say, like, because there's so many disparate art styles in this movie, like that's okay, like Spider-Punk. Look at this. This is how he pretty much always looks in the movie. Like, this, I'm pretty sure, is a still from the movie. So he's got like that cutout outline on it. Like, it's not always on him, but it is always on his guitar. His guitar always has this cutout outline. And so, to give it that kind of, you know, UK punk, like, collage look to it, it's kind of the same aesthetic that, like, the Spider-Man Homecoming end credits have. But, because you have all these mishmashed styles, when they have a couple moments with like live action characters, it really just feels like, okay, we've just entered another style here, and I really appreciate that. And you know, like some of it might just be like flashbacks to stuff, because you know we're talking about the Spider-Verse, and so when they're dealing with stuff in the Spider-Verse, we actually see at one point a couple scenes from like the Raimi and I don't even know what you, I guess, okay, so you would have the just the Raimi Spider-Man movies and then the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I don't think we saw any of Tom Holland. I think they probably don't have the rights, or don't have it negotiated quite right to just have the MCU shown up in specifically in the movie. But they do reference the MCU. They actually make reference to the events, just like in an offhand line. They talk about what happened with that one universe with Doctor Strange messing everything up. So, so it's there. This is still the same multiverse that the MCU works in, which that's not a problem because, you know, it's a multiverse. So, multiples of them. But let's move. Actually, let's talk about Spider-Punk here, right here. He's probably my favorite character in this movie. He's, you know, that very, like, 80s anarchist UK punk. This is what he looks like without the mask. Miles even comments, how does he look even cooler with the mask off? And he's not, like, a huge character in this one, but I assumed he was going to be a fan favorite just based on how people were talking about him. He's great. I don't have a whole lot to say about him, other than I hope he's going to be in the third one. I hope they give him more to do, but he is kind of one note, but his one note is really, really great. One thing that I want to talk about is you've probably heard the term canon event thrown around. And this is going to be some mild spoilers for the movie. If you don't want to be spoiled, you know, there's your warning. But the canon events in this movie are established as things that have to happen in every universe with the Spider-Man. So, like, things like Uncle Ben dying, or, you know, it's not always Uncle Ben. You know, depending on who it is, it could be some other close person, like in the MCU. For Peter, it's actually Aunt May. Although I assume Uncle Ben has already died at some point, but that wasn't like his inciting incident, like it was in Spider-Man No Way Home. But the idea is, like, if you've watched Doctor Who, you know the concept of fixed points in time. And it works like that. Like, these are things that are immutable, they can't be changed, and anytime somebody tries to change them, bad things happen. And while that makes sense in, like, a time travel story where you're dealing with, like, one universe with a changing timeline, in a multiverse it doesn't really make sense. And that's kind of my big issue with it, is that a canon event is disrupted, and it threatens the multiverse, basically. And I don't get that, because in a multiverse where any possibility could branch off into a different reality, yeah, I don't think they are congruent concepts in that regard. If there's an infinite number of realities, then some of those realities won't have those quote-unquote canon events. Yeah. And I hopefully, because of the way it's presented, I'm hoping there's going to be an answer to that. Because Miles is basically, like, set up as being somebody who is in opposition to canon events, because he prevents a canon event and everyone's mad at him for it. Well, yeah, that is the thing. It doesn't. I don't remember it actually threatening all multiverses, but it did threaten the universe that the canon event was in. But even so, I think there was an implication that if enough of these canon events are disrupted, it could unravel the multiverse or something like that. I don't. It's not my favorite thing. I think it's kind of lazy storytelling a lot of times. Like in Doctor Who, I think the idea of fixed points in time is kind of lazy storytelling because it gets into that thing of like, it's like an answer to the question, well, if you've got a time machine, why don't you just go back in time and kill Hitler? And so the idea is that Hitler's rise to power is a fixed point in time, and if you try and mess with it, worse things happen or something like that. Which I'm actually going to bring that back up when I get to Strange New Worlds this week. But I just feel there's better ways to go about it. Like, I like the idea if you are in in a time travel show, if you just have like a single timeline, and like in Back to the Future, where changes to the timeline affect everything, rather than branching off into a different timeline and the old one is still preserved. I like it in those cases where, like, say like time is immutable, you go back and you try to change something, but you can't because the flow of time was already set, and so like you go in and you try to do it, but something else comes in. Those are okay. But yeah, I'm just gonna say, I think whoever wrote the canon event thing in this story had probably just watched Doctor Who and was like, ooh, I want to take that and put it in here, but I don't think it's a good one-to-one because this isn't a time travel story, it's a multiverse story. But let's talk about the villain, Spot. I think this guy is actually fantastic. He's set up from the start, he just seems like a complete joke of a character. Like, he's not even, like, he doesn't know how to be a villain. He's just kind of like, like, we first see him, he's robbing a bank, and he has no idea how to do it. He's kind of apologetic about it. And then, Spider-Man just kind of shows up, and he's just like, oh, geez, no, not Spider-Man. Look, I'm just trying to steal this ATM, man. It's fine. It's nothing. And, you know, the whole build of him is this kind of incompetent guy who grows into like a bigger and bigger threat. I think it's really well done. I don't want to spoil too much about it. Just know that I think Spot is a really good villain, but I don't think he's the only villain here, really. And I didn't actually pull up a picture for him, so let's do that now. Here we are. Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099. He is kind of really the other villain in this movie. And he's a villain in, like, kind of, like, he has built up this whole, like, Spider-Verse network. Like, a bunch of different Spider-Men are working together to protect the multiverse. And he's kind of got that, he's the villain where he's trying to maintain the status quo. He's the one who is, like, going after Miles because Miles disrupted a canon event. And, he definitely has more of a, look, I know what I'm doing, I'm the authority figure here, and I know because I speak from a experience about disrupting canon events, and you can't do that. And, like, very unlike other Spider-Men, he does not quip. He's not a quippy guy. It's like, you get the sense that he has such tragedy in his life that, I mean, all Spider-Men have tragedy, but, like, his seems like so much that it just weighs on him to the point that it just broke his sense of humor. He just doesn't have it anymore. And, he's actually kind of scary. Like, he's built up a lot beefier. Let me see if I can find another picture of him. He's a lot bulkier than Spider-Man usually are. Spider-Man are usually typically lean, but this guy's got, like, linebacker shoulders. He's a big dude. The villain of This Is How It Is. Yeah, I think, and, you know, we're gonna be getting another movie. They say in March 2020 2024, but I really hope they push that off, because from what I've heard about the production of this movie, they basically, once it came out, they're like, we don't have another movie yet. Once we decided to split them up into two, we just worked on Across the Spider-Verse. We have not worked on Beyond the Spider-Verse yet. So that's like, what, 9 months away? There's no way you can do a whole movie like this in 9 months without abusing the staff. And yeah. Oh, did they just confirm they're delaying it, Mr. Krabs? Do you have a link on that? Oh, you don't have mod privileges, so you can't get a link. Let me find out about that then. Beyond the Spider-Verse delayed. Let's see. The Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse release date delay could happen. Producers address sequel's release date exclusive. This is 1 hour ago, so let's take a look. Sony Pictures Animation recently released the highly blah blah blah. Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse may get delayed. According to a fairly recent report, which comes from comicbook.com, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse could wind up getting delayed due to a very important reason. In the report, artist who is working on the film claims that there is no way that the sequel could hit theaters in 2024. Okay, so this is just the information that I've seen. Yeah, so it doesn't look like they have announced that it's being delayed. Yeah, it doesn't look like anything new has come out since I checked. But no, they need to delay it. I mean, consider that they delayed the Sonic movie by like 6 months just to fix the CGI in Sonic, and that's just one character in a live action movie, and this is an entire animated feature. And the Beyond the Spider-Verse is a long movie, or Across the Spider-Verse, sorry. The one I'm currently talking about, Across the Spider-Verse, this is a long movie. This is 2 hours and 20 minutes. Okay? That takes a long time to build. What, Spider-Verse 1 came out in, 2017? So 6 years between movies? And they're gonna come out with the next one next year? I don't think so. Now, let's talk about what a lot of people have been talking about. Gwen. And is she trans? I think this is a pretty strong indicator right here. You don't have a lot of kids with protect the trans kids signs up in their own bedroom if they aren't trans. It's not impossible. You can definitely do it. But they put that in there for a reason. And I don't think it was just to have a shout out to trans kids. Although, even if that's all it is, I appreciate the filmmakers for putting that in there. I had been seeing a lot of people talk about how she felt very transcoded in the movie, and like this screenshot where she's having a moment where she's like talking about how she's had to hide her identity. And the color scheme is all the trans flag colors. You got the white in the windowsill, you got the pink and the blue, and it's her hair and everything. And I will say that if I hadn't heard everyone talking about it before going into it, I actually don't think this is how I would read this. They are the same colors as her costume, and her costume design dates back to the mid-2010s. And she wasn't originally written as trans. She was just Gwen Stacy, who has almost always been presented as cis. Or I would say always been presented as cis, really. I haven't read Spider-Gwen, the comics, so I could be wrong there, but at least in terms of just the mainline Gwen Stacy, she's always just been presented as cis. But I understand where people are getting that from this, and it's entirely possible that she is. I'm just saying, it wouldn't be something that would immediately pop to me, even as blatant as this looks. When I was looking for this scene in particular because this is the scene everyone was talking about, and when I got to it, I was like, oh, it's not as blatant as people were saying it was. I don't think. So, again, like, this is my opinion as a cis guy. So, there's going to be things, even as tuned into the trans community as I am, even with as many trans friends as I have, I'm not trans, I'm cis, so I am limited in my perspective in that regard. This is, so, you know, take my opinion with that big grain of salt. I think it's entirely possible. I just don't think it's as strong, to my mind, as a lot of people were saying. And I'm limited in my perspective as a cis man. And then I've got one other complaint about this movie, and it's that it ends on a cliffhanger. It ends on a pretty damn cool cliffhanger, but I don't like cliffhangers in movies. And like, I think probably an obvious example a lot of people are going to bring up of a very recent cliffhanger in film would be Infinity War. You know, that's kind of the one. And I had kind of like a sinking feeling in my stomach coming out of Infinity War. But I think Infinity War actually did it a little differently than they usually do. Infinity War and Endgame are pretty much their own movies. They don't feel like two halves of a whole. And I think Infinity War itself is, if you look at it from the perspective that Thanos is the main character who has a goal that he sets out to accomplish and then accomplishes it, well, then that's not a cliffhanger. He won. You know? Obviously, we see it as a cliffhanger because, well, we don't want him to win. We want the good guys to win. And it leaves the fate of half the universe in question. But it still is a complete story there. And as much as Spider-Verse, as good as Spider-Verse is, when it ended, I felt like, oh, well, where's the resolution? It just feels like Miles is kind of running from one thing to the next, and then there's peril at the end, but like I don't know what like the cohesive narrative of this movie is, and I think that's a problem. And I think there's, you know, probably going to be some resolution in the next movie talking about, you know, fate. I definitely think that they're going to find a way to be like, you were wrong about the canon events. It was something else that was causing this. I didn't do this. And we don't need to be enforcing that certain people have to die to preserve the, you know, the Spider-Verse. But we don't have that in this one. All we have is a lot of ideas introduced, and we gotta wait for the next movie to come out. There's a lot of action set pieces in this movie that build up to it. A lot of character development, especially for Gwen. Like, the entire start of the movie is entirely focused on Gwen. Like, we don't see Miles for like until like 15 minutes into the movie. It just opens all about her. And so she's basically like, she's the second main character of the movie. It still is mostly Miles' movie once he shows up, but she's almost like on equal footing with him in terms of main character status in this movie. And so I think there's a lot of satisfying things built up in this movie. And there's some teases about what's going to happen in the next movie. But I feel like a lot of this movie hinges on how good Across the Spider-Verse is. And I don't know how good it's going to be if they rush it out in 9 months, considering what I've heard about the writing process and the production process and how troubled it was on this movie. Because I was seeing things like the director would rewrite a scene 5 times after it was already fully animated. He would have animators go and redo a scene like 5 different times. And that sounds like a problem to me. Like, it sounds like he got a lot worked out through that iterative process of reworking scenes, but he also had 6 years after the first Spider-Verse movie to get that one done. And the next one comes out in 9 months unless they delay it, which they probably will, which they hopefully will, because animators deserve to see their families. So, do I think it is a better movie than the first Spider-Verse? No. I think the first Spider-Verse is still the best one. I think this one is a very close second. And depending on how Across the Spider-Verse sticks the landing, it could be better. But it's one of those things where, like, it requires future knowledge to know if it's worth it, you know? It's like how everyone remembers Empire Strikes Back as the best Star Wars movie, right? But it ended on a cliffhanger. A little bit of one. And if Return of the Jedi hadn't been as good as it was, would people remember it that way? Because when Empire came out, it was actually very controversial, ending on a cliffhanger, putting Han in carbonite. The heroes lose in that movie, you know? That could have gone very, very, very poorly for Star Wars. And if Return of the Jedi had been a dud, I don't think people would look as fondly on Empire. They'd be like, well, why would you leave things in that way so that you couldn't continue it? It's like how, honestly, I think it's like one of the biggest failings of The Last Jedi. I love The Last Jedi, but The Last Jedi erased everything that they had built up in the new trilogy to the point where they like didn't have a plan for the third movie. And then the third movie was so bad, it was just like, okay, so you threw everything out, and then for what? What was accomplished? Nothing. So those are my concerns with Spider-Verse. And I know I'm sounding kind of dour on this one. I really enjoyed the movie. I had a phenomenal time watching it. I don't know if you could hear that. I have not switched my speakers over to headphones, so let me do that now. Okay. I had some other window play a thing. Got my desktop audio muted, but I don't know if my mic picked it up. Anyway. Spider-Verse. Great movie. I would say 9 out of 10. But all of those criticisms that I have for the movie are keeping it from getting a 10 out of 10. But I think it's a really, really solid movie. I would highly encourage people to watch it. It is beautiful. Like, I haven't talked enough about the animation, but it looks so good. I think in terms of looks, in terms of just the animation quality itself, this one is better than the first. I need to see it again. But yeah. If you're going to see it, if you want to see it, go see it. You're going to want to see it multiple times. I want to see it again. But I don't think it's a perfect movie. And I have concerns about the future of where it's going. 9 out of 10, final grade to be determined after cliffhanger resolve. You know, and like, I think Infinity War was kind of uniquely immune to that, just because of the way that it was written with Thanos as the main character. But I think for a lot of other things, cliffhangers really, really, really depend on you sticking the landing. Like the Matrix trilogy. I think most people consider the third Matrix movie to be the worst of them, right? And the Matrix 2 ended on a cliffhanger, and so everyone was like hoping, oh, well, I had some issues with Matrix 2, but hopefully they'll get resolved in the third one, and nope. But oh, there was another comparison I was thinking of, and it's escaped me. I had it when I was talking about the Matrix sequels. Well, I can't think of it, so anyway, let's move on to the next thing. So give me a second here. Okay. We are going to now talk about episode 2 of Secret Invasion. As I mentioned last week, Skrulls are doing a terrorist plot to try and topple world governments, get them all fighting with each other so that the Skrulls can take over Earth. This episode kind of turns that whole dynamic on its head. And this episode is really all about introducing us to the villain Gravik and learning more about his backstory. And as we find out in this episode, he was actually recruited by Nick Fury back in the 90s to work as a spy for S.H.I.E.L.D. A bunch of Skrulls were. And they agreed to work for him as spies, with the agreement being that they would get to that Nick Fury and Carol Danvers would help them find their new home. Now, I should point out that after watching this first episode, I went back and I watched Captain Marvel again, and I noticed at the end of Captain Marvel, he takes the Skrulls in a ship and leaves Earth. And I was like, wait, so they leave Earth, but now they're all back on Earth and she hasn't helped them find a new planet? Did they just, forget about that scene? But no, actually. This episode actually starts with a recap of Captain Marvel, the movie. And I'm not 100% sure whether it was planned for the recap to be delayed until the second episode, because my mom watched the first episode and she's like, I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know what's going on, because she had forgotten Captain Marvel. She saw it once and, she's in her late 60s, so she just forgot about it. So she went back and watched Captain Marvel again. She's like, okay, now I know who these people are. And I suspect that they actually put the recap of Captain Marvel in because that was a feedback they were hearing from a lot of people was like, I don't remember these guys. But anyway, Gravik, he was promised by Nick Fury that he'd help them find a new home if he worked for him as a spy. And, well, it's 30 years later, and no, he didn't. Nick Fury did not hold up his end of the bargain. The Skrulls still do not have a homeworld. And in fact, they were kind of scattered across the universe in little, pockets of diaspora. And Talos... Do I have a picture for Talos? No, let me pull him up. Talos was the general of the Skrulls at that point, and he sent a message to all the Skrulls saying, "Look, we're finding violence everywhere we go, so everyone just come to Earth." And he reveals to Nick Fury that there are 1 million Skrulls on Earth. Now, when we saw the Skrulls in Captain Marvel, there was a handful of them on a spaceship. But it looks like since then, kind of Talos decided, you know what? Nick Fury wasn't holding up his end of the deal, and Earth is pretty nice, so everyone just come here. And, well, Fury does not like that one bit once he finds out. There's a line where he's just like, the host sets the terms for the visit. You don't just get to invite everyone to my planet without discussing it with me. And he kind of makes that argument that conservatives use when they don't want to pay for something. They're oh, we can't support Ukraine while we have homeless people in the US. when they don't actually care about helping the homeless people in the US either. But Fury says there's no room for other species when humans can't even tolerate each other. Which, I don't know, dude, that sounds like a you problem, and that sounds like an excuse. But yeah, not only are there a million Skrulls on Earth, they basically are already in control of the planet. Like, the UK Prime Minister is a Skrull, the Secretary General of the UN is a Skrull, lots of people are Skrulls. And after Gravik does a terrorist attack, after Gravik does a terrorist attack, in Moscow, which leaves 2,000 people dead, Gravik just goes to all of the, like, Skrulls who are world leaders and says, hey, I'm taking over. I am the new general of our species. And, they all agree. Well, like, one person disagrees, and he's just like, look, took a lot of guts for you to stand up to me, so you can go in peace. So, you know, showing that he's got a little bit of a code of honor to him, but, you know, he still is a terrorist who killed 2,000 people while he's, you know, trying to claim Earth as his own. So, he's definitely someone to look for. It looks like they're definitely building up the Super Skrull storyline, though, because, like, Gaia, Talos' daughter, who works with Gravik, she was, like, investigating some of the goings-on at the compound, and it looks like they are developing a new weapon, but it looks like they're pulling, like, genetics from some different species that they're trying to splice together. Like, she was looking on a screen and they had, like, Groot's DNA and a couple other different species. I think they were pulling some from, like, the severed hand of Cole Obsidian from Infinity War. So they're doing something. They're probably going to be building a big ol' Super Skrull. But I do not have all of my pictures up for this one, so Rhodey's in this one. We get to see a lot more of him. Mr. Krabs says, so basically they're doing a DBZ cell type deal. I've never actually watched any Dragon Ball content. I know that Super Saiyans apparently use constipation to get more powerful or something like that. That's about all I know about it. But, yeah, so Rhodey's in this one. We see actually quite a bit more of him in this one, because after the terrorist attack in Moscow, Rhodey is sent to talk to the European Union, who are all like, look, the person who did the terrorist attack was an American, as part of a terrorist group called Americans Against Russia, and you better get them in line, otherwise we're gonna side with Russia against you. And Rhodey's just like, bro, this is a terrorist, it's not us. And, like, I'm just here to talk to you as a courtesy, because, like, the president's got better things to do than come over and be, you know, scolded by a bunch of people who have nothing better to do. But he's also here to talk to Fury, because Fury dropped the ball and let that terrorist attack happen. And so he's there to fire Fury. And there's, like, a whole scene where Fury tries to play on, you know, the fact that they're both black, to be like, look, help a brother out. Like, he literally says the line, help a brother out. But I actually wrote down some lines here, and Nick Fury, this exchange was so good, I just gotta read it. So Fury says, men who look like us don't get promoted because of who our daddies know. Every ounce of power we wrestle from the vice grip of the mediocre Alexander Pierces who run this world was earned in blood. So let's make the power mean something. Help a brother out. And Rhodey responds, you want me to make the power mean something by helping a brother out? But you should know better than most, the reason we wrestled this power from mediocre men who don't look like us was not simply to turn around and hand it to mediocre men who do. And that was so much shade that I had to write down the whole speech. So now Nick Fury is basically on his own. He's been fired. He's got no government support. But you know, he's still going to be investigating it. But I also really kind of liked Rhodey's response there. Yeah, I think it kind of speaks to some of the mindsets. Like, it's not just enough to have, it's like the liberal mindset of, oh, we got to have the right person in power. Well, not always. Sometimes it's not about having the right person in power. It's about questioning, why should that power exist? Right? And like, the show doesn't get too much into that. It's just, this is an aside that I was thinking about. But, oh man, I like rewatched that scene like 3 times in a row when I was originally watching it, because I was like, oh, Rhodey is calling him out. But, so Fury's on his own now. We don't know what he's going to be doing while he's on his own, but that should be fun. Let's talk about Olivia Colman's character, who I can't believe I'm doing this. I have to actually look up her character's name. Sonia Fallsworth. Okay, so is she in the comics? I don't know. Not really relevant. Let's just talk about her. So like I said last week, she is kind of presented as like an amoral MI6 agent who uses scorched earth tactics. And in this one, we get to see just how kind of batshit scary she is. Because she is able to apprehend the one of the terrorists who carried out the attack on Moscow, who, you know, she quickly discovers by chopping off one of his fingers that he is in fact a Skrull. And there's like a whole torture interrogation scene where she's just like being so cheeky and mocking and smug while she's like torturing this guy to death for information. And it's yeah, I don't want to be on her bad side. I don't think she's a Skrull at this point. I was thinking last week, I don't know, maybe she's a Skrull, but I think she's just a human. I think she's just a very, very scary human. And I look forward to seeing more of her. I hope she dies by the end, because I think she's kind of a bad person, but I definitely want to see what kind of havoc she can wreak in the show until then. So that's kind of the main gist of this episode. The Skrulls are far more places than we realized. Oh yeah, I should also mention that the reason Fury's on his own, even though he was with Talos earlier, is that after he found out that Talos had invited 1 million Skrulls to Earth, they kind of, you know, got pissed at each other and went their separate ways. So that, I think, is going to... Because, like I mentioned in the first episode, I thought this was far more of like a Talos vehicle than a Fury vehicle. But now, once they've done that, I think we're probably going to get a lot more Fury. But anyway, show's getting interesting. I still think it's a little too early to say if they're going to stick the landing on this one. Well, I think last week I gave it a 6 out of 10. I would say I'll bump this one up to a 7 out of 10. It's a very entertaining watch. I think Gravik is shown to be particularly menacing, but I don't know if they're going to have follow-through with him. I think the actor's really good for him. I think I just hope that, you know, he's more than just a scary guy who does scary things. I hope they give him a little bit more meat. And I think that's about it. So, yeah. I still would say, if you're not sure if you want to watch it, wait a couple weeks before you get into it. You know, I will be bringing up some mild spoilers every week on here, but hopefully nothing show breaking. This episode does end on a cliffhanger that I'm not going to discuss, you know, because obviously I don't want to spoil the ending. But it'll definitely be something to talk about next week. So yeah, 7 out of 10. It's looking better. And I think that's it. Okay, let's move on to the next show. Okay. And now we're talking Strange New Worlds, Season 2, Episode 3, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which I think is a line from Macbeth. There's a lot of Star Trek episodes with Shakespeare references. And from the name of this one, you might gather that it's a time travel episode. This one is all about La'an Noonien Singh, the chief engineer of the Enterprise. In fact, most of the other characters on the show are not in this episode at all. Like, you see them at the beginning or the end of the episode, but I think most of them don't even have speaking lines. Like, this is 100% her episode. And, actually, that's a lie. It's not 100% her episode, because guess what? Kirk's back. That's right. Paul Wesley is back as James T. Kirk. But it's a little different. Because, like last time we saw this version of James T. Kirk, we were seeing an alternate timeline version of him. And that's exactly what we get in this one. La'an runs into a time traveler on the Enterprise who warns her something's happening, hands her a device, and then there's a big flash of light. She goes to the bridge, and this guy is in the captain's chair, and nobody knows who she is. And there's no Starfleet. And there's no Federation. And something happened in the past. And the little device that the time traveler handed La'an, well, Kirk tries to take it away from her. She grabs it, presses a button, and the both of them get sent back in time to present-day Toronto. Or I should say it's probably a couple years from now, Toronto. Because there's like a whole big, massive bridge between like Toronto and I think it goes across Toronto's on one of the Great Lakes, right? There's like a big bridge that goes from like Toronto to America. And so the episode is them trying to, you know, figure out what's going on. Like they discuss the changes in the timeline, like trying to figure out, okay, it must be something that happened here in a couple days that we have to stop. But of course, this version of Kirk, he's like not really inclined to change it at first, because he's like, look, I don't know who you are. You just showed up on my ship and got me trapped in the past, and I don't know, I like my future just fine. So why don't I just sit back for a couple days, let it happen, and then just go back home? But then he finds out that actually his future isn't that great, because he seems to think it's fine, but Earth is an uninhabitable smoking ruin in his future. Humanity's like living underground on the moon and like on Mars and Venus and stuff, but he's like, no, Earth is a paradise in my timeline, and we've spread out to like hundreds of worlds. And then he finds out that apparently in his timeline his brother is dead, and when he hears that he's alive, in La'an's timeline, and that he also is alive. She hasn't met him, but like she's like, no, I've talked to your brother. He's told me all sorts of stories about you. He starts to think, okay, maybe we should go ahead and do it your way. But this is kind of an episode that poses the question, and like I brought up in my Spider-Verse thing about, you know, fixed points in time and what happens if you go back in time and try to kill Hitler and something worse happens. Well, this is basically that premise, because La'an, her full name is La'an Noonien Singh, who, if you know enough Star Trek, you will recognize that name, Noonien Singh, because that is the last name of Khan, who was a brutal tyrant on Earth during the Eugenics Wars, who committed genocide and resulted in the death of tens to hundreds of millions in the wars. And she is his like great granddaughter. And she's always had to, you know, deal with the knowledge that she's, you know, basically descended from Hitler. And she's just been sent back in time to the point where Khan is being genetically engineered. And yeah, so what they find out as they're investigating it is that the bridge that I talked about from Toronto to the United States, that gets blown up. And that is an event that happened in both of their timelines. So they're like, okay, well, it can't be that. But they do recognize when they see the wreckage of the bridge that, like, the scorch marks look consistent with something called a photonic bomb, which is not current day technology. So they're like, okay, so that must have been something like there's some time travelers who were in this time to try and mess things up, and we got to figure out what they're going to do next. And they run into somebody who they think is kind of a bit of a whack job. She's like, believes in, you know, she believes in alien abductions and the government's covering up things. And, you know, obviously in Star Trek there have been alien abductions and the government is covering things up, but like when you present it in the context of present day, if you knew somebody like that, you'd be like, oh yeah, they're a nut job. And she does bring up, you know, your crackpot theories, like she mentions the JFK assassination and all that. But she does have like enough evidence of certain things that piques their interest. Like she's showing like photos of UFOs, and Kirk recognizes that one of the UFOs is a Romulan ship. So he's like, oh, she might actually have something here. And so the episode, it's a lot of that. And early in the episode, we have La'an's like personal log as she's talking about, you know, how she's been kind of feeling alone for most of it. You know, a lot of her job as security is having to be the bad guy on the ship, and you know, she's always been kind of a loner and has trouble making friends. But she and Kirk get on really well in this episode. But it's an alternate version of Kirk. And, you know, if she changes the timeline and goes back home, well, she's not going to have that friend anymore. So that's something she's going to have to deal with, because, yeah, this version of Kirk doesn't get to stay around, because we've got our version of Kirk. But there is, I can pull it up here. There's a character, oh, come on. Yeah, here. There's a character that I haven't spoken about yet, played by Carol Kane, called Commander Pelia. She is the new chief engineer on the Enterprise, and she is a lanthanite, which is a species that has been living on Earth basically for all of human history. living undetected among us, and they are effectively immortal. Like, I assume they can die by conventional means, but they just, don't age or age very slowly. Obviously, she's played by Carol Kane, who I think is like 70, so, she looks like an older woman, but she's in fact a much, much older woman. And she's the engineer on the ship, so when La'an needs to, they figure out that where they need to go is a place with, a cold fusion reactor. And they're like, well, we don't have any, if we had a tricorder, we could find it right away, but we just got sent back in time without any of our future gadgets. But, well, she is the chief engineer on the Enterprise, and she's living on Earth in this time, so let's just go find her and get some help from her. And so they track her down, and they find her, only to find out that just because you're an immortal alien who's been living on Earth in secret all this time doesn't actually mean that you have advanced technology. Because she's lived her entire life on Earth with humanity. As far as, I'm pretty sure she was probably just born on Earth. So her level of technology is just mid 21st century. She's not even, at this point she says, I haven't taken math since Pythagoras came up with it. So it was a great moment of, yeah, of course she wouldn't. And it feels like this feels like a reference to another episode of Star Trek. Hang on, I need to, let me pull this up. I had a bunch of these tabs open and then I restarted my computer and I lost them all, but spell this correctly. There was an original series episode called Requiem for Methuselah, in which they meet a man who claims to be the oldest human that he basically just never aged, and he went through life. He lived as several different historical figures. And the author of this episode, Jerome Bixby, also wrote a movie called The Man from Earth, which is also about a guy who was immortal and has lived 14,000 years. And I actually highly recommend watching The Man from Earth if you can. It's a very bare bones movie. It's just this one guy talking to a bunch of college professors with different areas of expertise, telling the story of how he's lived 14,000 years and seeing how they, can try and poke holes in his story and everything. But one of the things that's pointed out is that he has no advanced knowledge. He only knows as much as the people of his time do. Because, he's ancient, but he's not from the future. So when they go to get her help, well, she's not an engineer yet. She's not an engineer till she joins Starfleet, and Starfleet won't exist for 100 years. So she's still able to help them out because they are talking about elements that would be needed for a cold fusion reactor, and they mention tritium, which is a radioactive isotope of hydrogen. And they said that tritium would be used in a cold fusion reactor, and so there would be trace elements of it nearby a cold fusion thing. And she points out how tritium was used in divers' watches in the 80s to help the phosphors in the watch glow. And she runs an antique shop, and so she has one of those diving watches. And they realize, well, okay, it's, there's no tritium left in the watch itself, so it can't react with the phosphors to glow. But they realize if they break the watch face so that the phosphors are exposed to the air, and then they just walk around where they think the cold fusion reactor would be, when they get close, the trace tritium will ignite the phosphors and make the watch glow. So even though they don't have a tricorder or a chief engineer, they're still able to use her help to track down the cold fusion reactor and find what it is that they're looking for. And let's see. Let me check my notes. And then they find out that the crazy lady who had given them the lead on where to go and showed them the UFO picture of a Romulan ship, well, it turns out she's actually the time traveler who's going in to mess things up. And she was feeding them information because she thinks that they can help her get to where she's get to what she wants to do. Basically use them to get into, and like, because in Kirk's time that cold fusion reactor blew up, and so they're trying to go and prevent that, but she's using them to get to it. And there's even she like has like this whole like villain monologue about how there seem to be, like, she's like, you know, even with all of the temporal cold wars and everything like that, every time we try to fix history, it just seems like it keeps pushing back. And she has a line that says, I have been trapped here since 1992 trying to accomplish my objective, which is what it sounds like to her. It is saying is actually preventing the eugenics wars from happening, because apparently in Star Trek's history, we needed the bad times of the eugenics wars to give us something to crawl our way out of and become a better species. And the reference, I've been trapped here since 1992 trying to do this. Well, in the original series, when they first mentioned the eugenics wars in Space Seed, which is the episode where we meet Khan, Spock mentions that Khan was a brutal dictator who controlled much of the Earth in the eugenics wars of the 90s. So it sounds like Star Trek is saying that, yeah, originally the eugenics wars was in the 90s, but then time travel shenanigans happened. People have been trying to change things, you know, behind the scenes, and so now it's they've pushed it forward. So the eugenics wars still haven't happened yet. They're still part of Earth's history, but no longer in the 90s. And like that's a line that wouldn't immediately register to somebody else, but I am a huge Star Trek nerd, and I can recognize all the little timeline inconsistencies with a series that's been running as long as the 60s. You're always going to run into things where it's like, okay, that's not quite right. But they couldn't see the future, so it's fine. I thought that was a cute little thing. But this really is... Where's my La'an thing? Yeah, this episode focusing on La'an pretty much the entire time, and guys, she needs a friend, because like obviously she goes back to her Enterprise once she has saved the day, and Kirk's not with her. She actually ends up calling Kirk, the actual James T. Kirk, and like makes up an excuse of, oh, I needed to look, I needed to verify some information on your brother's security record. And like after he hangs up, because he just figures, oh, it's just a routine thing, you can tell she had made a friend and she lost her friend, and that's not him. And she just kind of breaks down crying, and that was a really sad moment. And I want to give her a hug, but I also know that if I try to give her a hug, she'd stab me. So she needs some therapy, y'all. She needs some therapy. I will give her a hug once she has gone through a lot of therapy. So, I think that's about all I've got to talk about in terms of reviews, but while I've got y'all here, let me fire up some video games, and we can just hang out with chat. Just give me a second here. Get this fired up. Also, stop recording, because I'm not doing segments anymore. Booting up my game. Okay, what do I want to play today? What should I do? Cat's choice. Should I do Sonic and Tails, Sonic alone, Tails, Knuckles, Mighty, or Ray? Also, there is an option to add Knuckles, but that option is like Knuckles is a secondary character, like how Sonic has Tails. But that one seems special enough that if you want to donate, I think the exclamation point tip seems broken, but there is a link in the description below that will take you to the Stream Elements page where you can donate some money. So somebody wants to drop like $5, I will play any character with Knuckles. In fact, we could even do a Knuckles and Knuckles run. So if I get some money, I'll do that. Otherwise, I think I'm just going to do some solo Ray for now. Ow. Yeah, I was running that one a little long. That's a good run. Ooh. I think actually I want to go down here. Oh, okay. I'm still learning some of the alternate routes and remembering where all of the giant rings are. But I think not going top route is the correct way to get the first giant rings, so... and on down this way. Here we are. I knew it. How's chat doing tonight? There we go, Mach 3. Oh, what you riding, Paco? Well, you should hydrate, Dizzy. You tell Alora that I'm also yelling at you. And I just lost my lightning shield. So tell Alora to yell at me, because I messed up. And now I lost that shield too. What do we have over here? Invincibility. We'll take that. Ooh, you know what? Well, hydrate more. Give your kidneys a workout. Fire shield, we take those. Also, Dizzy, now that I've seen Spider-Verse and talked about it here, I know you were desperately looking for people to talk about. Talk about Spider-Verse with. So you now know that that can be me. And I don't know if you were here for the start when I was talking about it, but if you were, what do you think about my thoughts? Ooh, I get my shield back. Text well when you get the brain fuzzies. Well, I definitely know that when you don't have those brain fuzzies, you can text well like a motherfucker. Holy shit. I remember one time where, like, I was, like, super high, but you had, like, just got it in your head that you really had something you wanted to talk about. So you just, like, info dumped in my DMs. And I just, like, was like, I'm happy for you. It was like that thing, like, I'm not reading all that, but I'm happy for you, or sorry that happened. Yeah, okay, sounds like we share similar concerns. I don't see a way, like, based on what the artists are saying about how much is done, and with the writing process, how iterative it is, and how much, like, the director had them, like, reanimate stuff over and over again, I don't see how that same writing process is going to get us a good resolution in 9 months. So I really hope they delay this. I hope they delay it by, like, a year or two, honestly. They're not going to delay it that far. They've already announced it's next year, so if they do a delay, it'll be like a 6-month delay. But I don't know. For one, I hope they delay it enough that it is the best movie it can be. But also, I hope that they don't abuse the artists to do that. I really want them to give the artists as much time as they need to get the best movie done possible. But I live in the real world, and I know that there's no chance in hell that they delay the movie more than, like, 6 months. A year at most. But, you know, it was 6 years between Spider-Verse 1 and 2, and we got a really good second movie out of that. And I would happily wait another 6 years for the resolution. You know? Rude. I got a shield. Yeah, there wasn't a lot that we got about Jess in the movie. Like, I didn't even talk about her in the review because she's not really much of a developed character. Wow, I should not have jumped that high before it loaded in, because that really took a while to get it. You're over there? I can't even hit that. There we go. So I think, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that Captain Marvel comes out this year, or the Marvels, the sequel to Captain Marvel that has Kamala Khan in it. I think that's actually going to be coming out pretty shortly after Secret Invasion. Like, does it come out in July or August? I'm curious how much Secret Invasion will tie into the plot of the Marvels. Because I don't remember seeing any scrolls in the Marvels trailer, and I don't really know much about the villain, but I don't think the villain's a scroll. Well, I mean, I'm playing a video game, but y'all have the internet. That's why I'm asking. Somebody go Google it for me. Thanks. Please and thank you. November 10th? Okay, so it's not as soon as I was thinking. Okay. That would be pretty wild if they just released it like right after Secret Invasion was done. Although that wouldn't really jive with how they're currently saying they want to slow down on how many Marvel projects they release a year. So that makes sense to make us wait like 5 months. Right? November's 5 months away? I'm doing my math right? It has to be, because we're in June. Actually, it's probably closer to 4 months away. We're at the end of June. And November 10th, that's like first half of November. Yeah, Dizzy, I didn't really want to talk too much about the cliffhanger ending, just because, you know, it was a big third act twist with the wrong dimension. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting. I really like where they left things. Like it's a really good, exciting setup for the next movie, and I like that at the end they brought back. Even though we didn't have like we saw Penny earlier, but we didn't have Spider Noir or Spider Ham until the very end, but it's nice to see that they'll be back. Well, my birthday is in May, and my mom's is in November, and in fact, my half birthday is 1 day off from my mom's birthday. So that's how I was doing the math, because so May to November is 6 months, so June to November would be 5 months. Actually, my half birthday is Veterans Day. So it's nice to get a federal holiday on my half birthday. That was very considerate of them to think of me when they were planning that one out. And whenever I get to Mach 3, it's always like, oh geez, controls get so slippery here. Yeah, Paco, you know. I also know that November is 9 months after February, because I know a shitload of people who are Valentine's babies. Like, my mom was born November 12th. My dad was born November 17th. Although I don't think my dad was a Valentine baby, because if I recall correctly, he was a month premature. So he would have to be steak and a blowjob baby day. want it to go up. Oh well, doesn't matter. I don't think there's another shield or another ring up there, so no, let go. So I bought Sonic Origins and downloaded it because I was like thinking maybe I would play some of that, but that thing is so poorly optimized. Like, it won't run on my laptop just normally without massive lag. And I know trying to add OBS into the mix, like I'm already getting some lag in this game just doing that, and this is a much better optimized game. I don't know what they were doing with Sonic Origins, but I am not pleased with the inconsistent quality of the stuff that Sega puts out for Sonic games. Oh yeah, you were telling me about that. Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear about that, Dizzy. I don't really have a strong, like, smell sensitivity, but I know people who do, and that just, yeah, that does not sound good. Especially, your puppy loves you and wants to be around you, and you want your puppy to be around you, but that's rough. I don't know if it's one of those things where, like, okay, I don't want to hit those springs when I'm only at Mach 1. Don't get any of the rings at that velocity. But yeah, I don't know if the scent is one of those things where, like, bathing in tomato juice will fix it or not, but I don't know if it's like the skunk spray. Well, that didn't get me anything. Yeah, puppies don't know. She's just a little dog. She ain't done nothing wrong. It's a little guy. I know it's a she, but dogs are guys. They're little guys. Like, I always maintain that you can't misgender pets because pets don't have gender. Gender is a human concept. Dogs are just dogs. Cats are just cats. Baking soda, that's a good idea. Yeah. Very absorbent material. Oh, jeez. I hope I catch this guy in time. Oh, so the other day, for Father's Day, Bosch's dad, Mark Kaczynski, who's got a pretty big fan following on Twitter just because he's Bosch's dad and he's a very argumentative kind of dude. He posted a meme that was the Michael Keaton Batman doing the yeah, I'm Batman thing from the Flash movie, but it said, yeah, I'm Bosch dad. And I had replied to him at that point saying, thank you for being Bosch's dad, and more importantly, for being an animator on Babylon 5. Which, great show, and Mark Kaczynski was an animator on that show. Actually, I think that is the first sci-fi show to exclusively use CGI for space shots. They didn't have any like model shooting. It was all CGI. So Vosh's dad worked on that. And today he actually responded to my comment, even though like Father's Day was a week ago, right? And he said, I think it was IAK 21494 Hyperion class. It means something. And I googled that, and I found the Babylon 5 wiki, which said that IAK 21494 was the registry of the Hyperion ship in Babylon 5. And if you are astute, you might know that Vosh's birthday is February 14th, 1994. So Vosh's dad put a little nod to his little baby on this ship, because Babylon 5 was running in like the early to mid 90s, so this must have been a later season that he threw that in. So Vosh must have just been a newborn when he threw that. That's a really cute little thing that he threw in. I'm like, oh, that's great. Also, I happen to know there's a bunch of Babylon 5 fans who hate Vosh, and that just makes me happy that it's a little bit more his than it is theirs. Not that it's a problem if you don't like Vosh, but I'm talking about the kind of people who, you know, have the brain rot about it. I am just one Chaos Emerald away from Thanos snapping half of the universe. You know, thinking about the Sonic 2 movie, how the Chaos Emeralds didn't really show up until the very end when he broke open the Master Emerald, and I was just looking back and going, yeah, they saved the Chaos Emerald for the very end because otherwise it would get too many like Infinity War comparisons, even though I'm pretty sure that the Infinity Gauntlet story in the comics was after Sonic. Like, I'm pretty sure it was in that storyline was in the 90s. But everyone would just be comparing it to Infinity War, so I think that was probably a good move of them to wait on the Chaos Emeralds until the very end of that movie. Oh no, you got me with a big one. How dare you? Oh no, you've got me blocked off. Here we are. I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay. I beat him. Okay, so you said, yeah, the brain rot is honestly, I feel like part of the brain rot is people are bored and want drama, and the space is actually not prone to organic drama, so people have to make some. Yeah, having seen, because I've been, hanging out with Keppels more lately, and she is wanting to create her own like version of the commentary community. Something, you know, a little bit less toxic than like what people like Augie and Nick Diorio make. And so hanging out in that space, you know, you see a lot of just how that kind of drama gets manufactured. And I've realized that, honestly, Cornbread Tube, they pretty much operate in the same function. They just have a veneer of, like, leftist rhetoric on top of it. But yeah, I don't know. They're, oops. Well, I just lost a lot of progress there. Let's try and get that again. Yeah, it just, honestly, it almost feels like the commentary community is more honest about their drama, about how they just are in it for the blood sports. They don't have any leftist theory that they can hide behind for their, you know, brainworms. And don't get me wrong, I would much rather deal with FD Signifier any day than somebody like Diorio or Augie. There's an honesty that that they lack that I really wish they would just admit that they're in it for drama, you know? Because, like, I mean, even this today with, like, Rosalind and Kaylin Conrad going after Keppels, the only reason they're doing that is because Foreign Man in a Foreign Land is putting out a hit piece on Vosh and Keppels tomorrow. So they did that shit today to drum up more eyeballs on it, so people are primed for when Foreign Man in a Foreign Lands video comes out. Like, I've seen how some of these things work. They're all in a Discord. They're doing that shit. And I just wish they'd be honest about what they're doing. Yeah. Yeah, no, Kaylin blocked me today when I just gave factual pushback to the shit he was saying about Clara. That shit sucks. It sucks. See, like, especially Kaylin, like, I really liked Kaylin's videos. They do a lot of really good videos. And it just keeps happening. It's like, these people who are like, oh man, I really like them and I just wish everyone could get along, and then honestly, I really want to say, like, FD Signifier's probably, like, the orchestrator of a lot of this. It just feels like he got a bug in his ass about Xander Hall and decided that he was going to use his community to just declare war on the streamers. And it's like, guys, is this really the best use of your time? Like, don't get me wrong, I understand the appeal of drama. Like I said, hanging out with Keppels a lot and Tipster and stuff, and seeing, like, some of the behind the scenes of how the commentary community works. Like, I get the entertainment in a lot of that, and I just missed a ring down there that I don't think I can get back to. Oh well. But there's just no honesty about what Cornbread Tube actually is. And every time they do it, they're always like, oh, I don't know why I have to be doing this one. Why do it? Oh, here we are again, doing another drama video, even though what we really want to talk about is leftist praxis. And it's like, well, no, you don't actually want to do that. What you want is views. And you know that drama gets views. That's why you're doing that. And I think I missed another thing. Yep, I do not have superpowers, so guess we just get to do this one normally. Oh, and of course it's at the last. All right. Rude. But yeah, it's really disappointing. Like, Jesse Gender. I had been a fan of Jesse Gender long before I was watching any live streamers. Long before, like, I knew that political live streaming was a thing. And to see how far she's fallen, how racist she got, just because these guys decided Shark wasn't black enough for them. that shit broke my heart. There we go. Hey, I think we get Supersonic now. Or Super Ray. Dizzy says, but like, I don't post tweets ragging on cishet black folks and their transphobia worded that way for a reason, because I see the transphobia the white queer discourse causes. Oh yeah, no, every single time these people want to be homophobic or transphobic or misogynist, all they have to do is throw white as a qualifier in front of it. And that is not to say that there are not valid critiques to be had about white people, but they always couch it in white queers, white trans women, white women, you know? And especially like when they are sometimes when they are going after like a white trans woman like Keffels or Demon Mama, I have seen them literally not bring up the fact that they're trans. Like they will critique, like they'll bring up what the other side is, they'll list all of their oppression points, and then when it comes to the trans woman they want to criticize, they just say it's a white woman. Like, this poor black immigrant bisexual man versus this white woman, and it's like, is that all she is a white woman? You just listed every single thing, like, you listed the entire life history of this one dude, but this trans woman gets boiled down to a woman. Oh, yeah, no. Like, disability, oh, shit, no, you're absolutely right, though. Disability is, like, the most oppressed class in society. Beyond everything. I mean, shit. Who did the Nazis kill first? The disabled people. But they won't even bring it up unless it's couched in a way to bring it back to blackness. And it's really unfortunate because there's a lot of good intersectional discussions to be had about all of that, but they're not ready to have it. They're just looking to play team sports. And they don't actually care about reaching synthesis or uniting the left. They just want drama, and they just want to harass people and make themselves look like the heroes because they're not white while they're doing it. And it's bullshit. And it's one of those things that you have to be so careful in how you critique, too, because, like, we've seen how not careful Vosh can be when it comes to discussing racial politics, and that's really bit him in the ass. You say, like, it comes swinging for even pro-trans rad femmes because I see the way being anti-men makes feminism non-intersectional. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no. A huge amount of, like, turfdom comes from women who just hate men. And because they see trans women as men, a lot of the rhetoric that they go into is informed by their hatred of men. Now, that's not to say that they aren't also misogynist, because they absolutely are. They're definitely misogynist. They have incredibly regressive views when it comes to the role of women. But they are also man-haters. And that, I think, informs so much of their rhetoric. And to ignore that, just because the people that they're targeting aren't men, is to tie half your brain behind your back while you're, you know, doing that kind of intersectional analysis. But yeah, TERFs definitely don't treat trans women like they treat men. That is not what I want people to get away from that. I'm not saying that at all. It is very obvious from how everyone treats trans women that they definitely see them as some flavor of women, even if they will deny it. But yeah, a lot of the rhetoric and a lot of the motivation really seems to come from a deep-seated hatred of men. And, like, you know, on some level, I can understand where that comes from. I can understand coming from a place of trauma, but trauma doesn't actually help solve things. Trauma is just a problem that everyone has to, you know, navigate. You don't actually get good solutions because you were hurt. And, like, I kind of hate how often people bring up the fact that TERFs are often, like, this is not my words, but the way, like, people use it to be like, oh, they're kind of clockable women, you know? I don't like how much people, like, rely on that rhetoric of them. Oh, it's just, oh, they're mad because they're ugly. Because, you know, that sounds a lot like the shit that people would say about the suffragettes. Like, you look at that kind of, you look at the political cartoons of that era, and it sounds very similar to that. And so I have to caution people on how they phrase that shit. Like, I think people like Mia Moore on Twitter, I think she goes way too far with some of her rhetoric. Like, I do think it's really funny when she will post, like, celebrities, like, Sigourney Weaver and stuff like that, and have the turfs like go and like be like, oh, I can clearly see that's a man when it's a woman. But like Mia Moore also just kind of gets into the like, I'm hot and you're not, and gets kind of like bitchy in that way, and it really sucks because there's a lot of trans women who just, not every trans woman is attractive, not every woman is attractive, but because part of the concept of like passing as a woman, like, you know, or like part of femininity in the way that culture sees it is like being an attractive person, right? Like that is part of how the patriarchy defines being a woman, is being attractive. And so to attack women for being unattractive just because they are transphobes, I think you're running into some real dangerous territory there. Ooh. Nope. Okay. That's because, like, I know I've talked to I know Poppy. She has real issues with the way specifically Mia Moore goes after it, because she feels like she's just being like a catty woman who just like, oh well, you're just not hot and that's why you're like that. And she kind of feels a little, even though Mia Moore and her haven't like interacted, but she feels like it's that kind of rhetoric. Like it just it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I don't even want to use the words. I'm just thinking of 4chan terminology, and I'm not gonna say it. I'm not that internet brained. It's just, you know, passing discourse and who's attractive and who's not, and it just feels like mean girl shit, you know? I'll go up. Ow. I was trying to get pulled up by the magnet, and now I can't. I'm just not sure where the threshold is for when the magnet pulls up the lightning shield, but no, I've lost my lightning shield. So I don't get to find that out today. Rude. I wonder, can I get a lightning shield here? Nope, I don't get nothing. I did get up here, though. All right. I forgot. I already had all the Chaos Emeralds. I remember a couple streams ago, I was still high from like an edible the day before, and Tipster came on. We were just talking, and I got all 7 Chaos Emeralds while talking to Tipster, and I didn't even realize it until like after he hung up, and like I went to get one of those rings, and it just vanished, and I'm just sitting here like, when the fuck did I get the 7 Chaos Emeralds? I had to go back and rewatch the VOD to be sure that like I didn't, you know, like that I had actually done it. It was always an insult to call a woman you dislike mannish, especially a black woman, but it's gotten way worse. It's now any woman who is pro-trans. Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's also kind of the inverse is what I was talking about. Some of them, like, you know, when people like post, like when that one person didn't recognize J.K. Rowling in the picture and thought, oh, that's a man. That's very funny that like they're like, oh, we can always tell, and they couldn't even tell that chief transphobe was a woman. But I really want to caution people on how far they take that, because it's very easy to just go into boilerplate misogyny, you know? Oh boy, I don't know if I have enough speed, because I decided to roll through that. Okay, I did make it. Okay. Oh, I got 3 hits off of that one. That was a really good run. Wow. Did I one-cycle that? Oh my god, I one-cycled that! Holy shit! I have never one-cycled that fight before. That was awesome! Man, I'm glad I was streaming that. Now it's recorded. I mean, it definitely helps that I was super. I don't know that I would be able to one-cycle that without being super, but still. It's not like I was cheating. Come on. I'm trying to jump here. There we go. I hate those guys because, like, it's so easy to just accidentally hit their tail. I don't even want to risk it. I have too many rings. Eh. Nope, you're not going to let me get those rings? Okay. Alright, have a good one, Paco. Thanks for hanging out. You always make sure my chat is full of messages and my videos get algorithm comments, so I really appreciate that. And I don't know if I'm gonna be able to... How do I... On. Oh my god. Hey, Ron's KFC, how is it going? I recognize that name. Demon Mama says that. I am done with my reviews for the day. I'm just playing some Sonic Mania. But, how's it going? Were you there for the stream yesterday? 'Cause that was a wild ride. It's always fun when something happens that makes Demon Mama throw out her entire stream plan. Yeah, I know, right? I actually did a bit at the beginning of the stream where I pulled out a ukulele and had ukulele music playing. In which I did a non-apology for having taken so long to watch Spider-Verse. Alright. We are in Act 2 with the Fire Shield. That is the ideal situation. Now, the real trick is keeping it. Drop it. Yeah, you know, it's funny too because I was really looking forward to watching the Emma Vigland versus Tim Pool video. So hopefully Demon Mama has another stream here in the next couple days where she covers that one because I have only seen the clips that were on that were posted to Twitter, and really want to see how that all went down because, oh man, Tim Pool got the big... You bitch! You stole my fire shield and you stole my rings! I'm so mad. No, right before then! That was where I was gonna do the special thing! I'm so mad. Oops, I guess I actually do need to not break that. There we go. Have I seen the? No, actually, Jay Friend, I was just saying I haven't watched it. I have only watched the clips that were on Twitter. So I was looking forward to Demon Mama covering it, because, yeah. You heard Avatar 3? Well, I could have told you Avatar 3's been delayed, because Avatar 2 was delayed, what, like a freaking decade? Like, of course James Cameron's gonna take forever to get the next one out. There we go. But was Sonic 3 slated to come out the same date as Avatar 3? Is that why you're saying that? If so, yeah, that is good news for Sonic 3, because there's no way it's beaten Avatar at the box office. Honestly, when Avatar 2 came out, I wasn't expecting it to do as well as it did, because it had been so long that I figured people would just forget about it. But no, it did very well. I still haven't seen it. It's out on Disney Plus now, which I've got, so I feel like I should watch it at some point. But I did kind of miss out on, you know, the whole theater going experience with it, with the proper 3D. I think James Cameron's like the only guy who actually is doing proper 3D in movies, because so many other places do it as a gimmick where it's a conversion process, so it's like, what's the point? It wasn't filmed in 3D, so why show me it in 3D? And then even some people who do film in 3D, they do like the gimmick where like stuff pops out of the screen at you, and James Cameron's like, no, just, it should be a window that you're looking through. And that's why his stuff just looks so good. Also because, you know, he spends like $1 billion on it and takes 10 years to make a movie. So, you know, that's another way that it looks good, because he, you know, takes the time to get it there. Well, was Avatar... when did that come out? Did the first Avatar come out in 2009? The reason I say it took a decade for Avatar 2 to come out is because it was originally slated to come out in 2014. That's why I said it took him a decade. Longer than he thought it would. But yeah, I've heard Avatar 2 is really good. Also, I feel like I need to watch it because a lot of people, once like the news about Gladys, the orca, was coming out, a lot of people were just like making Avatar 2 references. So, you know, I am definitely a Gladys stan. And if that's what the movie is about, the sea creatures rising up against the incursions of humanity, then sounds good for me. We did hear that they brought Quaritch back as, like, his own Avatar guy, and I'm just like, was Quaritch really such a memorable character that they needed to bring him back as the villain for the sequels? Like, he was such a boilerplate, oh, I'm the hardened military mercenary guy. I look like I should be chewing a cigar. So, I don't know. Having him be like so important that they had to clone him and bring him back, just, I don't know, that seems a little silly. But I haven't seen the movie, so maybe it's played better. But maybe I'm just right. And really, when you think about it, it's me, so I'm probably just right. Oh, Edie Falco was in Avatar 2? You know, I can't think of much that I've seen her in since The Sopranos. But, like, I kind of get the feeling she gets a lot of the same roles that Vera Farmiga gets. You don't know who Vera Farmiga is. You've seen her and stuff. She's that lady from, I think she was in the, was it the Conjuring movies? But she's also, she played Norma Bates in Bates Motel, which is what I primarily know her from. And she is an amazing actress who gets a lot of just, like, trash roles. That, you know, she does her best with them, but it's like, it feels like Hollywood really doesn't fully respect what she's capable of. Like, Bates Motel, I think, was where she really had her chops. Like, she's so good in that role that it makes you forget that Norma Bates wasn't a character in the original Psycho. Because she's dead by that point. But, like, she plays that role so well, and you just fully understand how this woman could make Norman end up the way he is, that, oh, it's so good. Yeah, I knew she... yeah, I knew that Edie Falco had Nurse Jackie, but I never watched that show. Wasn't it like she was a nurse who was a drug addict and was, like, stealing drugs from work and stuff like that? I wonder, can I get up there? I bet I can. Yeah. A canceled cop show on one of the broadcast networks. I mean, doesn't that just sound like everything that's on broadcast these days? Like, the only things that broadcast television can still afford to do are police procedurals, because they're so formulaic to make. Like, I think Nathan Fillion has a show called The Rookie that's on its, what, like, 5th season now, and it feels like, if you've been a cop for 5 years, you're not a rookie anymore. So, kind of silly thing to name a show. Doesn't really future-proof it. Although I think my mom watches that show, and I think she told me that he's, like, now a police instructor for other rookies, so that's a way to make it work. And Scrubs kind of did that whole thing, because once, like, JD became an attending physician, they brought in, like, a cast they started just bringing in new, like, casts of interns, and then also after the show ended, and then they added another season on top of that, they had, like, a whole new cast of interns. But at least with Scrubs, like, yeah, the double entendre of the name is, it's not just, you know, Scrubs. Yes, Scrubs are a thing that they wear, but also they're just Scrubs. They're new to this. But even so, once they start, you know, getting experienced as doctors, the just other name of the show, with the scrub being the thing that they wear, still worked as a title. The name of the cop show was Tommy. Was it any good? Did you watch it? Yeah, it sounds like one of those CBS things. I never learned the patterns on this fight. This whole fight is usually the one that I have the most problems with. Like, here I am probably gonna die, because I always hit at the wrong point of this guy, and if you hit at the wrong place, it will like get you stuck in a bounce that throws you to the ground out. That throws you behind him, and then you just fall to your death. So that's why I'm playing cautious with this one and making sure I hit him from the front. Countless bad shows, that's good. that sounds about right. Yeah, is it CBS that has all of the CSI shows? Like, oh god, the show Lucifer. I really need to finish Lucifer. I was watching it when it was on TV. Was that CBS or NBC, or was that Fox? It was Fox, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was Fox. But like, they took the concept of Lucifer and then just made it a cop procedural. And I watched it because I liked the Lucifer bits, but I was just like, oh, this. Why do they have to shove cops into everything? And it's my understanding that once it was picked up on Netflix, that they stopped doing so much of the procedural, like, case of the week stuff and actually started to get more into the good stuff about, you know, Lucifer and his daddy issues and, you know, all of that fun stuff with the supernatural. I think when I last watched, they had brought in Tom Welling on as Cain, but that's about where I left off on that show. I also heard that there was an episode that John Constantine appeared on, which I gotta watch that because it's my understanding that he and Lucifer totally talk like, oh, they absolutely fucked at some point. Which is great because I love that John Constantine on Legends of Tomorrow is absolutely the bisexual king that he should be. Like, Matt Ryan, that dude was just born to play John Constantine. Don't get me wrong, I like Keanu Reeves, but having read Hellblazer before I watched the Constantine movie, I was just like, they changed this role so much just because they're like, well, we've got Keanu Reeves, so let's make him more like Neo, you know? But, yeah. I don't know. Constantine, he needs to be a Liverpudlian who looks like Sting and has a tan duster, not a black one. Aren't they doing a sequel movie with Reeves? You know, I heard something about that a while back. I wouldn't mind if they did. Although I would much prefer they just give Matt Reeves a movie. But like we have like multiple Constantines. Like Sandman, they did a female version of John Constantine. Joanna Constantine, I think was her name on the show. And I watched. I don't know if she's in more than one episode because I haven't finished Sandman, but I watched the first episode that she's in, and you know, she still felt pretty much like the character. Although I think she felt a little cleaner than John Constantine should. It's like they cleaned her up a little bit because she's a woman, so, you know, women can't be too dirty, I guess. But in terms of, like, her story, like, it pretty much captured the whole vibe of what John Constantine's about. Everyone he gets close to dies horribly, and it's usually partially his fault. But, like, I want to see a proper adaptation of, God, what was the name of the story? It was the one where he gets cancer and, makes a deal with the Three Lords of Hell to basically manipulate his way out of it. I think it was called Dangerous Habits, but I could be mistaken. It was, oops. the guy who does Preacher and The Boys. It was like one of his first comics that he ever wrote was that run on Hellblazer. And it's probably one of the best comics I've ever read. And they adapted some of the story elements from it for the Keanu Reeves Constantine movie, but I just want to see that story itself adapted, because there's just so many things where he's just like, you could tell he's just like, oh, dude, no wonder you're like going to hell. This is you play so fast and loose with the rules. You have no respect for the powers that you're dealing with here, but yet he still manages to get out on top. Like, he gets the 3 Lords of Hell to agree to cure his cancer because none of them wants to relinquish their claim on his soul. And so if he dies, it will turn hell, it will lead hell into a civil war that they'll never recover from, because they all hate John Constantine so much that they would rather burn hell than relinquish their claim on him. And after they cure his cancer, to stop the war, he lights up another cigarette and flips them off. And it is so good. Also, the way that he pissed off Lucifer and got Lucifer to claim his soul was also great, because, like, a friend of his asked him over because this friend had made a deal with Lucifer for his soul, and it was one of those deals where it's like you have to claim the soul before midnight, or it doesn't count. And so the guy dies like right before midnight, and Lucifer comes to claim the soul, and Lucifer's like, you know what, I've got like 10 minutes, I can hang out a bit. And the guy was like a magic practitioner himself, and he had figured out a way to transmute water into beer. And so he had this whole thing of like delicious beer that he had transmuted holy water into, with like, and there was like candles on the table that as long as they're lit, it stays beer, but as soon as they're extinguished, it goes back into holy water. And Constantine tricks Lucifer into drinking it, and then kicks the table over so all the candles go out. So Lucifer has a stomach full of holy water, and he did not have a good time with that, and you can understand why he would claim to Constantine's soul afterwards. And I want to see that adapted in a movie. It's such a great moment. It's such a, oh, you totally got Lucifer, but oh, you're gonna pay for that one. Yeah, it's one of the best comics I've ever read. Like I said, I think it's called Dangerous Habits. I think it starts either in issue 48 or issue 52 of Hellblazer. You can probably find it as a trade just on itself. I think I read it just as its own trade, and can't recommend it enough. It is such a good story. Reaper? Yeah, I remember Reaper. That was what's his Brian Fuller. He did that show, right? That was because it was one of those shows that had a female character with a guy's name, right? It was George. He likes doing that with his shows. In fact, he was the first showrunner for Star Trek Discovery, although he was he parted ways before they actually started filming. But you can still see his influence on it, because the main character of Star Trek Discovery is a woman named Michael. So that's definitely his MO. But yeah, I really like Brian Fuller's stuff, especially Hannibal. Hannibal's such a good show. Hannibal was on NBC. Like, it is amazing that a show that good and that dark was allowed on broadcast television. Now, it aired on at 11 or 10 to 11, so I think it was in the FCC safe harbor laws where you're allowed to show more adult entertainment. They don't have all of the decency standards in effect at that time. But even so, there was stuff where like there was somebody who had been turned into a blood angel, with like their back muscles were torn out and like spread out as wings, and NBC was like, I don't know, this is too much to show. You better put some gore in to fill in that butt crack. We can't show any butt. Well, we've got this mutilated corpse made to look like an angel. Really goes to show the priorities of puritanical American TV execs. Oh, well, of course. Thank you. Yeah, no, Star Trek, I don't think I have autism, but if I do, Star Trek is my autistic fixation. I have seen every single episode of every single series. Actually, before Star Trek Discovery came out, I had reviewed every episode and movie on a blog. It took me like 7 years to do. But yes, I am definitely a Trekkie. And, you know, I am glad that I made that video. It was just a meme thing, and I wasn't even thinking about making it public. Because it wasn't really what the content on my channel is. But I got a lot of subscribers just from making that silly little meme video for Demon Mama stream. So, that was a good move on my part. What Star Trek do you watch, Ron's KFC? You know, oh man, I didn't even talk about this during my Strange New Worlds review. I feel like I should probably record a segment to bitch about it. Next Generation, well, that is definitely one of the best shows. But yeah, I should have done a segment talking about how Paramount fucked over Prodigy, because that was some fucking bullshit. I'm so mad about that. Like, they were advertising Paramount Plus as the home of all of Star Trek, and then they just decide, oh, even though Season 2 is almost ready, we're just gonna go ahead and cancel it and pull the show from the fucking site. Like, fuck you. Like, up until that point, I hadn't been, like, shilling for Paramount Plus, but I had been saying, boy, it seems like Paramount really has confidence in Strange New Worlds to put so much of it on YouTube just to make sure people will subscribe to Paramount Plus to get the new stuff. But now it's like, yeah, I don't want to encourage people to get Paramount Plus. I would rather they watch Star Trek and otherwise, because they're just, if they're gonna fuck over the franchise like that, just you love the hated Enterprise E design? You know, yeah, I like the Enterprise E. I understand why they, oh my god, why am I bad at this one today? I understand why they got rid of the Enterprise D for the movies, because it wasn't really designed for, like, a big screen. But, yeah, I still prefer it to the E, but that doesn't mean I don't like the E. I really like the E as well. I don't like the F, which we only briefly saw in Picard. I don't like that design at all. That one looks ugly. But fortunately, we don't see it for very long. A lot of people hate the no-neck design. Well, you know, it feels a lot like, it's a very similar design to Voyager, right? Because Voyager has the same no-neck design. Might get in there. Hey, a shield. We take those. I will say, though, I think right now, probably one of my favorite starship designs is the Titan. Or, as it's now been rechristened, the Enterprise G. Yeah, I mean, that was done deliberately. They, like, even call it a Neo-Constitution class. And, at the end of Picard, they rechristened the Titan the Enterprise G. I really hope we get a Star Trek Legacy spinoff, because Terry Matalas, the showrunner for season 3 of Picard, he has been pushing it really hard, and it seems like everyone involved wants it to happen. So I guess it's just a matter of convincing Paramount to greenlight it. I don't think we're going to see it for a couple of years, just because with the way Paramount has been treating their like they canceled Discovery and now Prodigy. So we're probably not going to see that for a while, because we still got other shows that are in production. But with how well received Picard season 3 was, I think it would be very unlikely that Paramount doesn't greenlight Legacy at some point. It's just a matter of the bean counters. Also, like, even though Prodigy has been canceled, there's still I still think we're gonna see it season 2 come out somewhere, because like it was almost finished. Like it was supposed to come, season 2 is supposed to come out like this fall, and so the showrunners are shopping it around to other platforms, other streaming services, as they should, because canceling a show and then pulling it from your service so that there's no legal way to watch it, that should be a crime. Like, you do that, you should relinquish all copyrights to it. Like, I think it should be like a law that it's like, oh yeah, if you have a TV show and you decide to just pull it for, tax write-offs, well then, as a part of that tax write-off, it is now in the public domain. How dare you? But David Zaslav, the CEO of Discovery, he's kind of the one who spearheaded this whole idea of, oh, wow, we're losing money on streaming and we overextended, so what we're going to do is get rid of shit that we already had, because that way we don't have to pay the people who made it anymore. We don't have to pay residuals if we're not showing the show, and that's evil. Evil, and I really hope with the writer's strike, and I don't know, I haven't looked too much, but like I'm pretty sure that the Screen Actors Guild contract negotiations are coming up here, so hopefully that also becomes a strike, and once that happens, well, oh my god. Once that happens, Hollywood just shuts down until they have a deal, and I think they will have a lot of negotiating power if they stay in solidarity. Yeah, it's such a dirty trick. David Zaslav is probably one of the worst people working in the entertainment industry. It reminds me of, like, back in the day, interestingly, this kind of came from, like, the other side, but back in the day, like, with the BBC, they would, delete, or they would, like, just get rid of, like, old episodes of TV shows because the actors didn't want them to just play the old episodes over and over again and not give them new work. And so because of that, there's a lot of episodes of Doctor Who that are lost media. Like, we might only have the script for it, or we'll have, like, an audio recording of it, but we don't have the video. And a lot of that is just because of the standard practice that after they played the episode a certain number of times, they would just trash them. And that was certainly not very future forward thinking of them, you know? I don't think they anticipated how people would engage with media at the time, but feels like the way that David Zaslav has inspired the entertainment industry to operate feels like we're just going right back to doing that kind of shit, and it's disgusting. Why should always back up your media. Get physical copies of anything that you can. And if physical copies are not legally available to obtain, well, do what you gotta. Like, it's not like I don't, you know... It's not like I don't want the entertainment industry to make money. As long as we live under capitalism, you know... I like having media to watch, and I think everyone making it should be paid a fair wage, and you can't really do that if you're not paying for the media. But... they either needs to find another, like, business model to get it working, or... I don't know, something else, but... Just destroying shit as a tax write-off, that shit's heinous. Yeah. I almost got stabbed. I hate these things. I got crushed by them so many times as a kid. Oh, geez. I think I might have just accelerated global warming. Whoopsie. Look up the Bill Krause NCC 1664 Excalibur. No, I'm not gonna do that right now because I'm playing my game, but I will make a note of that. Now the Excalibur, wasn't that the ship that was part of the New Frontiers books? I seem to remember that was the name of the ship. Captain Mackenzie Callan. I remember it was one of the few book series that I started to read because I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Instead of just taking existing characters and putting them in stories that we know aren't going to be canon because a later TV show is going to contradict it. Instead, they're doing their own thing with it, and that was kind of cool. Ooh, I don't think I've ever gotten up here before. That's cool. I want to see if I can get a shield back. No. Oh, there we go. Let's get in here. There we go. Last time. Hit me. Hit me. And I did not see the Surfs making fun of Matt Walsh playing Call of Duty, but I can imagine Matt Walsh has a strong boomer energy, even though he's actually younger than me. I'm 38 and he is younger than me. That is wild. He complains the entire time. Well, of course he did. He's a boomer. He has no riz. I don't think he's ever had fun in his life. Well, let me clarify. I don't think he's ever had fun in his life that wasn't at the expense of a child. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Hate definitely ages you. Like, shit, I don't know. You look at people like Glinner or J.K. Rowling, Their hate has absolutely aged them. No! Very rude. I had all those rings, and you stole them from me. Calling your manager. You will not be getting a tip at this Applebee's. Yeah, Dizzy, every single time people find out how young Matt Walsh is, it's so funny. Okay, like I can relate to that because like I was also playing kind of like a generation behind in the consoles. I actually I don't think my parents ever bought me a console, but I bought myself a Genesis when it was like once the N64 had come out. Because like I think I was able to get it on clearance for like $30, and the used game market for Genesis was pretty good, so I was able to get a lot of the stuff in that way. But yeah, when I told kids at school that I had a Genesis, I definitely had some people laughing at me. Which is like, fuck off. I paid for my Genesis. Your parents bought you your console. You didn't do shit. I had a job at 14. I was actually earning everything that I had there. So, that was his villain arc. Somebody made fun of him for not having an N64. Well, I can say he doesn't get to blame his villain arc on that because I also got made fun of for not having an N64. So, sorry, Matt. You gotta find something else to scapegoat all your hate on. And I love this music so much. Yeah. See, you can't blame Nintendo for being an evil, hateful bigot. You can blame Nintendo for them being an awful company that really hates their customers and updates discontinued consoles just to brick them because you didn't like that people were using third-party workarounds to still be able to play on the console they fucking paid for. Really hate Nintendo for that shit. Runs KFC says, CM47 either had an NES or some old-ass Atari, so not too many people lying about their systems. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember who it was, because I definitely played the NES, and, like, I had one in my house, but I remember it was, like, we had borrowed it or something like that. But yeah, I definitely played both NES and Atari, but it was usually, like, at other people's houses. Yeah, they pushed out an update on the 3DS specifically to prevent a workaround people were using uh to jailbreak their 3DS to get it to still be able to like install and play new games. Pure evil. I remember when the start of the all digital era came with no physical media, and I should have been more concerned about it then, but at the time I was just thinking about how convenient it was. But we paid a price because now nobody actually owns anything anymore. But tell you what they can't do. They can't push an update to the fucking Sega Genesis. So as soon as I can find that, dig it out. Why did I do that? Why would I trade a fire shield for a water shield in this zone of all zones and then immediately lose it? And then lose all my rings. I'm not having a good run here. I don't know, I'm tired. I actually think I might call it after this act. I am starting to feel the fade. Ah. Oh, but I think there's a fire shield on this side. Yes. Oh, is Indiana Jones coming out this weekend? I hope that's good. It looks like it could be fun, but oof. Indiana Jones 4 was so bad. Honestly, like, even the trailer kind of, like, acknowledges how bad Indiana Jones 4 was, because it's like, you know, I've been through some adventures, made some mistakes. And there's no trace of Mutt Williams in the movie. It might just pretend like that movie didn't happen. Like it was all a concussed fever dream that he had after surviving a nuke go off in the fridge. Although I wouldn't like that as an answer either, because then it would still have to acknowledge that he survived a nuclear blast by hiding in a fridge. God, that movie's so bad. But you can definitely tell that it was written by George Lucas. And isn't it, who's directing this one? Because I know it's not Spielberg, it's somebody else, but it's a guy who's, like, directed some good stuff. I'm trying to remember. Like, I want to say Matt Reeves, but I also want to say that's wrong. Because he's doing the Batman movies. Well, I don't think Lucas was actually involved in writing this one, because Lucas sold Lucasfilms. He might have, like, they might have, like, talked to him as a courtesy, but I don't think Lucas had any actual involvement in this one. I think after all of his ideas for the sequel trilogy were thrown out, I think he realized that the company has his name, but does not actually care about what he thinks about it. And, like, you know, he sold it, so probably should have expected that. James Mangold, that's who it was. Yeah, okay. Yes. The Wolverine guy. I knew it was a guy who did, like, comic book movies. There we go. I gotta say, though, I am really looking forward to seeing Barbie. That movie looks so much fun. And it's a sentence I never thought I would say in a million years, but, was it the director, Greta Gerwig? I don't think I've seen any of her stuff, but I've heard that she consistently makes good movies. Like, she did, Little Women. I heard that was a really good adaptation. But also, Ryan Gosling, it looks like he's treating playing Ken like Ryan Reynolds treats playing Deadpool. And that just seems like fun. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. For real, people were still raw after the prequel trilogy and cursed his name anytime it was attached to a project. Once Disney bought Lucasfilm and people started complaining, they forgot about Lucas. Yeah, well, I mean, like, it was the toxicity of the fans' reaction to the prequels that's really what made Lucas want to sell it and just be done with it. And, you know, I can't say I blame him. He definitely got a pretty nice payout from that. Was it $4 billion? Which means that Star Wars is worth double what Minecraft is worth. You know, if you just want to feel depressed. Oh, there's a shrink ray somewhere in here. I want it. There it is. Nope. I guess that little thing was an alternate path that you could get through if you were shrunk. There we go. Now it's shrink ray. I'm a little guy. Just a little goofy guy. Just a little goober. A little small bean. Yeah. Of course, I will never protest people turning on Disney. That is always morally correct. How dare you? Yeah. I really... J.J. Abrams really did a disservice to Star Wars by not, like, actually trying to develop a trilogy. He just wanted to do the one movie and set up, like, mystery boxes so that somebody else could figure it all out. But they had no cohesive plan for what they were going to do. And Rian Johnson had his own ideas, and so Rian Johnson threw out everything that was set up by J.J. Abrams, and then Colin Trevorrow's script, they hated it, so they brought back J.J. Abrams, who just threw away everything Rian Johnson did, and it was just an incoherent mess. I really liked The Last Jedi, but it's really harmed by the fact that there was no follow-through to it, that fan reaction on it was so tainted that they decided to just get rid of it entirely. Like, Episode 9 was really just a giant retcon of Episode 8. And considering that Episode 8 was also a big retcon of Episode 7 in a lot of ways, it's hard to say that it was, like, uncalled for, except that Episode 8 was good. Hey. And I realize now that I said I was gonna call it quits after the boss of Lava Reef, and then I just did Metallic Madness. But that's okay. I think I'm gonna call it quits after this one, because next up is Titanic Monarch, which is the final zone, and you would be saying, Gayfesh, you're at the final zone, why not finish it? The final zone's really big, guys, and I kind of want to go to bed. So... So, oops, go back there. So thanks everyone for coming. Glad to have people to talk to. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed, to go ahead and do so. I'm really close to 500 subscribers, and that's one of the 3 requirements to getting monetized on YouTube. 500 subscribers, 3,000 watch hours. And thank you for watching, because these VODs definitely help bump up those numbers. And then the last requirement is 3 video uploads in the last 90 days, which is super easy to do. But yeah, thank you all for... this was Sonic Mania. Yeah, this one came out in 2017. It's like the true sequel to Sonic 3. But yeah, anyway, thanks everyone for coming, and y'all have a great one. See you next time.